who is the other subject of the film, and our filmmaker Lisa Melmed. So I have a few questions to ask. I'm sure you have many more stories than were in the film. And my question for Lisa first is, was this project started when Larry was still alive, or did you start it prior to his death, or did you? Yes.
I was going to say, sadly, we didn't start it before Larry passed away, and I really regret that. It started the night after he passed away, and Herb came to, we live in Brooklyn. He came from New York today, on Friday, to be here. And also I just want to say thank you to everyone at the festival. They've just been amazing, and we're so happy to be included. But the project started right after Larry passed. It was COVID, and Herb, I knew, couldn't go out to California to any sort of a shiva, and so we kind of did a little shiva at our apartment, and had corned beef and pastrami and diet black cherry soda, and Herb just started telling stories. My kids were there, two of my young adult kids were there, and Herb started telling stories about him and Larry and them as kids, and we were just laughing and crying, and that was really the impetus for the film, was that night. So I do regret I didn't do it before.
And my question for Herb is, it made that part of Brooklyn and indeed New York seem like a magical place to grow up. But in later years, how did Larry's success impact your friendship with him? And maybe would you tell us a story that the film didn't include?
Well, Larry and I had a consistent friendship over 75 years. Our first escapade began when we were both traffic monitors. You know, they give you this yellow fluorescent sash, and we both were born in 1933. So we were tremendously affected by World War II and the aftermath when we learned about the Holocaust. And these people who committed the terrible atrocities kept saying, well, we were following orders. This is what we were told to do. And so Larry and I would do experiments in obedience to authority. As traffic monitors, we would wave kids by and stop the cars. And so there were no more kids. And Larry said, we're kids. These adults in the cars follow us simply because we have yellow sash. So what we decided to do was hold up the cars. We just held up our hand. We held up our hand for about 7 minutes. There were tremendous traffic jams. The police were called, and we ended up in the principal's office, where ceremoniously the principal ripped off our sashes and said, you'll never have a responsible job as long as you go to junior high school. Well, cut to the point, we never had a job. When we're seniors, they're doing the class show, and it's called By the Sea. And some of you older vintage may even remember the song. It went, by the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea, you and me, oh how happy we'll be when the wave comes rolling in. We'll rock and fool around the water's edge and over. Okay, that's the show. Now, Larry and I tried out for the show. No, neither of you have any talent whatsoever. We remember your episode, well, holding up traffic, but you can be curtain pullers. So Larry's on one side of the stage, pulling up the curtain, I'm on the other. We had a friend by the name of Benton Rubin who changed his name to Bobby Benton. He later worked for Tito Puente. He was his singer. Tito Puente would introduce him. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Bobby Benton, Baba Rabatini. And so Baba Rabatini was the star of the show. And by the way, we were like 14. And Larry and I are sitting in my apartment on Sunday night, and Bobby Benton, who was also known as Ben the Warrior, comes over. And his problem is that he's got too much to do. He's worried. He has to make his entrance riding a bike down toward the stage. He has all of these songs to sing, and they gave me the additional job of going out between acts 1 and 2, and 2 and 3, and entertaining the audience. He can't do it. Herbie, Larry, help me. Okay, so we said, all right, we'll help you. Larry and I then write our little monologue. We got about a half hour, and we write it. Larry, curtain comes down, Larry comes out from one side, I come out to the other, and he says, hiya, Spark. I said, hiya, Plug. He says, I know a joke about a chicken, but I don't want to pull it. I say, let's duck it. He says, that was foul. That corny stuff, the audience goes crazy. The kids, it's a riot. And then we start ad-libbing stuff. Hey, I haven't seen your father lately. You know, well, he's got a job. What's he do? He's a mechanic at Madison Square Garden. What's that? He fixes fights. And so, what you have seen in this video, in this film, you see Larry saying at the beginning, to Spark, and he signs it Plug. So he's going back and he's saying, in essence, you know, they thought both of us were like nothing. And maybe we amounted to something after all.
And now we'd like to open up to any questions that you may have for either Herb or Lisa. We have,
I'm not sure that it was said what the relationship is here.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. So Herb is my father-in-law.
Okay.
And married to his middle son, Steve, who's here.
So I just wanted to know, you know when they say that when you marry someone that you also marry the family,
Yeah.
and I'll bet that Herb probably sold you on Steve immediately.
You said that you sold me on Steve immediately. Well, I just have to say that I was actually terrified of Herb, and like for years and years and years. So I don't know. But now we're close, very close. But I do want to say there's another question, but there's one story I definitely want to tell about the movie. But if anybody has another question.
I think the short is only about 12 or 15 minutes long. I bet you have a lot more material. Tell us about.
Yeah. So what we do. So one of the things that we don't have in the film is, except for the little bit of the CNN footage, is we didn't have any footage of Larry and her together. And so since we finished the short, we found a bunch, like 2 different pieces. And you know, I'm kind of interested in trying to expand this short to include some of that material, also just more about their lives and their friendship together, right? There's a lot we didn't get to see. And then I just wanted to say one thing, especially because Sean is here, and so, you know, the little book, in the book of photographs, so that came about after we finished shooting her in his apartment. He went over to he has a credenza in his apartment, and he started pulling out like the autograph book from Bensonhurst Junior High School, which I couldn't believe he still had. And then he also pulled out this book of photographs of like with the spark and plug and with Larry in all of these different locations in Bensonhurst, and that was actually the impetus. I mean, we knew we were going to take Herb to Bensonhurst, but it was like, oh, let's take him to the places that are in this book of photographs, this little album. And so we didn't know where it came from. Herb had it for a while, really couldn't recall like where he got it. And it was a little bit of a mystery, and we decided, I mean, that actually really, did become the framework for at least the beginning of the film, or half of it. And so it was a mystery. We decided we would just go with it. We would, use the photographs, and we found out a little bit later that it was Sean that had gone with Larry. I guess it was before you were married.
It was before we were married, and Larry wanted to take me around and show me where he had grown up. And just stand up for a second. The place where Larry was.
I know Herb as Herbie. I can't call you Herb, so I keep hearing him now as Herb. But Larry always spoke of Herbie as the rich guy. Herbie had way more than Larry. But Larry slept on the outside on the, what do you call that, Herbie? The fire escape. And when it was hot, he slept on the fire escape. But anyway, he and I, we were dating, and so he took me there. But then the real test about whether or not we were gonna stick together was for me to meet Herbie. And we met on Fisher Island, right? Isn't that where it was? And luckily, I don't know, did you give me the nod? 23 years later, here we are. So anyway, I just can't tell you guys how much I love this, and it made me tear up, and it's just a beautiful place. Please finish it.
Sean, who we just heard from, and Larry were married for almost a quarter of a century. She was the love of his life, and she's really a wonderful person. She helped him out, and she was always supportive of him, and I thank her very much for coming here today. Thanks.
Very good. So, one more question? Sure.
So obviously, Herb, everybody in this audience knows you could have been one hell of a great stand-up comedian, but you didn't choose that for your profession. And I'm wondering, what was your profession? What is it now, and why did you choose it?
What's the question?
What did you do? What is your profession?
My profession? Well, I usually live in the world of fiction. When I was in Egypt, I told them I was a Presbyterian minister. And I tell people I'm an orthodontist. This way they don't talk to me. But actually, probably I'm known as someone who negotiates. I worked in the corporate world with 3 major corporations. I went out on my own. I taught at the University of Michigan, the Graduate School of Business. In fact, I was Herman Gadden, who some of you may know, who was married to Natasha Josefowitz. These are natives here of this place, and they had me teaching at the University of California at San Diego, and I would come here about 4 or 5 times once a year and taught at the Graduate School of Business. But I do so many things. That book you heard about, this first book, You Can Negotiate Anything, was on the New York Times bestseller list for 9 months. It's been translated into 32 languages, which I don't understand, you know. I mean, it's inconceivable. If my parents were alive, they'd probably pass out, you know, never thinking that this could happen to me. There's an article about me in a Russian magazine right now, where they took 3 photos of me in this, you know, it's a long story. And according to them, I'm the world's best negotiator or mediator, which I'm not, okay? So I regard myself as being lucky. I'm supported by a wonderful family. I've had great friends. I have great memories of Larry. I miss him every single day. He was a wonderful father, and really as good a husband it could be. Larry was a unique person. He had traditional values. People often ask me, why has he been married so many times? Well, most people, if they want to have intimacy, men, with a woman, what they do is they get together and get intimate. Larry believed that was inappropriate before he had sex, if you pardon the expression. Before he had sex, he wanted to make sure he was married. And so he got married. And then he saw someone else that was attracted to him, and so he had an annulment. And mostly Larry was a guy who was in love with love. In 1937, Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart wrote a song, I think I'm in love again. And there's falling in love, there's falling in love with make-believe. Larry was always wanted to be in love, and he was in love. And he's a very unique guy. He was different, and that's, in my opinion, the key to success, to differentiate yourself. As I like to say, a nose that can hear is worth 2 that can smell. So I don't know what that means, but I say it a lot.
We will continue with the films, and then we will have Q&A with the last of the films. Thank you.